we'll actually just modify the app.js. So what I'll do is I'll create a new branch so that we can keep what we did this morning. So just add this stuff. So this was prop types and forms. New branch search. Okay, cool. So we're going to go in and we're going to modify our app.jsx. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple song database or list of songs called Songify. Alright. So we're going to need to change our app, which we might as well just make a whole new component, right? Bit of a pain to use app. So let's call it Songify. Since so many apps seem to end in IFY for some reason. Or Y at least. Spotify. Alright, we're going to do a class component. So RCC. So in our render, I'm just going to put a H1 Songify. And we're going to set up a search form. And we'll set up a label. Actually, if we just type label and press tab, we get the HTML for. So you're aware of using for on a label? Are we all aware of that one?
You click it and it goes to the input.
It goes to the, yeah, it focuses the input. So it basically attaches a label to an input. But because for is a reserved word in JavaScript, as we know, we can't use it in JSX. So instead they came up with HTML for. Okay, but it means the same thing. And we'll be calling it search. Search for song. And then the input will set ID equals search. And then we're going to need our on change. So we learned this morning. And I'll call the function update filter. Okay, so let's get at least this much working. So Can anybody remember from before lunch what we're going to need to set up here?
Constructor.
Make this work.
A constructor, and on change your update filter method.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we don't need a state right now, but
I don't need a state.
not right now, no. Not until we've done that.
But not until we've done update filter anyway. Okay, so what is update filter going to do?
This dot set state.
All right, and what are we setting?
The value of input, I imagine.
Okay, how do we get that? Anybody else? Well, it's just value, yeah. And then we need to put that value into a key of some kind. So I'll call it filter. That's arbitrary. I could have called it anything I wished. But since we're calling it update filter, then that implies that this is a filter. So it seems logical to call that filter. Okay, so is that going to work just as it is there?
No.
Okay, what have I got missing?
Your constructor, because you don't have any state.
Okay, so
Actually, can you set a state if it doesn't exist? They give you if you set a state for, I don't know, food that you already had bar.
Surely you could, because you might not necessarily have initial state, so you think that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like you should be able to. So you don't even need to fill out that. For a while, probably.
okay, now remember you can just, if you've got the plugin in, you can just do rcon, and press tab, and that'll drop in a default constructor. Okay, so what do I need to set in here?
Your filter.
Filter.
And it starts as an empty string.
Yeah, well that's probably logical. Okay, so like we saw before lunch, in order to have a control element or control component, we need an on change, okay, and we need to have an event which will set state to the current value, and we also need an initial state for that to work. Have I missed anything?
We don't need to put the value of the input in the tag, do we? Like we've got type and ID on change. We don't need to set value as this dot state dot filter, do we?
Who thinks we need a value there? Anyone? Who thinks we need it?
Can you say that again?
Hey?
Where are you talking?
Here. So within there somewhere, do we need a value attribute? Well, let's leave it out and see what happens. So first of all, we're going to need to go back to index.
You need one because event.target.value is finding a value, is
Yeah, so that's event target value. So we're doing that there to pull it out. So let's just run this as it is. So let's pull in Songify. And remember, we can...
Yeah, I can see an error from Mom's leaving, so I don't know why. Mate, I can see an error from 30 feet.
So what are you saying the problem is, Dylan?
It just doesn't have a value to be called on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're setting...
Okay, search for song. So down here we've got our filter. Okay, that works. What if I change it down here? Ah,
Exactly what I was
see the problem? If I modify the state, it hasn't updated the input box. So how do you think we fix that?
adding a value.
Okay, so I'll need to set the value here. And what's it going to be?
It's got state dot. I take what you say.
Okay. Otherwise, we don't have the two-way binding. It's only one way. We can update the state from the input box, but not the other way around. So for it to work both ways, which is what we want, we also need to set the value to the appropriate field in the state. So that way, if the state is modified, then React will automatically update the value in the input box. So let's test that out, make sure it works. Here's our filter. Modify it down here. Yeah, that works now. And if I change it up here, it changes down here.
Can you go back to the code for a second?
Mm-hmm. So you can think of it as we've actually got two things happening here. It's in two separate parts. We've got this here is displaying the value of the current state.filter in the input field. So that's going from the state to the input field. And then in order to update the state when the input field changes, we have this event here. And then that goes the other way by receiving an event. So event.target will then refer to this input box, and it just gets the value from it. And then changes the state.filter to that. You see what you need to see, Leo?
Yep.
Yep, cool. All right, any questions there? It does take a bit of practice to get used to it, because it's a whole different way of working with forms to anything we've done before.
With the other one we did, the main form one, is it worth doing in the update filter, the square bracket dot name thingy, just by default, or only if you have more than one function using that?
Well, that's probably a good idea, because it certainly makes this more generic, doesn't it? So we could change this to a more generic sort of handle change.
Yeah.
And then here we put square brackets event.target.name. and here our name would be what? Filter, yeah. Why is it filter? Yeah, any other ideas on why that would have to be filter? Have a look at that code there.
This filter is in our class state.
That's correct, yeah. So filter is the property in our state that we want to update. So because this means use the value of event.target.name as the key, and because we want the key, we want to be looking at the filter key in the case of this input, then our name needs to be filter. Okay, cool. So now it's no good having a this filter on its own. It doesn't really do anything, does it? So what we're going to do is output an array of songs on page. Now technically the songs could come from anywhere. Okay, we could go and grab them out of a database or from an API or whatever. Okay, for now we'll just hard code some. You can put in any song names you want.
Yeah, I do exactly that.
Baby shark, trap remix, baby shark, baby shark.
And running in the mountains, baby shark,
Yes.
The Aussie crawl.
I wasn't meant to stop trying to do it for 30 minutes, right?
Okay, and we'll just output them down here under the form. So we could be really sophisticated, but we'll just keep it nice and simple. This dot state dot songs, and I'll just use a map. And let's map it out to a H4. So basically loop through the songs, and for each one output it wrapped in a H4.
Thank you.
So hopefully, okay, good. Now, at the moment, now my text box is broken. Can anybody tell me what I did wrong or failed to do? Give you a clue, it's over here. No, can't see the problem.
Handle changes or object filter.
There you go. Yep. I changed my function name and I forgot to change it here. Oh, there we go. So we're working now. Good. Now, obviously it's not filtering the list because we haven't written that functionality yet. But we've at least got it that far. So I'm going to do before the return. So essentially what we want to do is we want to take the value of filter in our state and essentially go through the array and only keep the ones that match the filter. Any ideas on how we might do it?
When we say match, do we mean it's a perfect match or it just matches?
No, it can just be like a single character or a string of characters, so it can be a substring.
We could build a regex with the value on each change and then search the array for that regex and then filter it according to matches with that regex, returning the matches.
Mm-hmm.
That should work.
Okay, how will we write that regex?
It's on my head.
/
I've done it before.
Is there any other way we could do it?
Filter with contains. I think contains is the right one.
Install the package that has search feature built into it.
Now remember we're dealing with an array here. Does an array offer us any way to do this?
Does includes do partial?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So just filter with anything that includes your value.
Yep. So use the filter function for an array. So we can see over here, returns the elements of an array that meet the condition specified in a callback function. Okay. So the callback will return either true or false. If true, the element will be kept. If false, it won't. And it will build a new array with the elements for which it was true. Okay. So, song. So this is our callback function. And it'll just be song includes the filter.
Upon research, includes won't do partial matches, it'll only do exact matches.
Okay. Is there something that will do partials? Or do you have to do a regex? Well, that might be the solution. You may have to use a regex. Maybe the only way to get it done. Shall we test that? See how far that gets us? Oh, and down here we'll just want songs, which is a variable or a constant here.
Looks like it works for me.
Yeah, well,
So yeah, partial does work.
yeah.
Yep.
So,
It
yeah.
doesn't. Like, it doesn't on MDN.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Baby shark. Well, the baby shark, yeah.
It's case sensitive.
Yeah.
Never mind.
It is case sensitive, though, you'll notice. But if I take regard to case, then it filters correctly. You note I don't have to submit the form or anything, because upon changing the state, it automatically re-renders everything, which means that because I'm doing the filter within render, means every time it gets re-rendered, it'll refilter the results. Okay, did we all get that working? Well, there you go. That's pretty much how you do a search function.
Where was that? Alpha and Java? No, vanilla JS.
Now, there's a lot that can be done to improve this bit of code here. And in fact, that's what your afternoon challenge is. Because you're going to do things like make it not case sensitive. And you're also going to do things like putting the songs in a component. Okay. But before you get onto that, and by the way, the unit in question is called React Library App. Okay. Before you get onto that, if you haven't attempted it or finished it, do React State and Component Lifecycle Units first, in that order. And then do React Library App. They're all stacked one on top of the other anyway in Canvas. So start with React State and work down to React Library App. Okay, any questions on any of that? All right, cool.